prompts have always been an unavoidable part of gaming. Especially as control schemes get more complex, it becomes necessary to have certain prompts that are associated with very specific things. Sometimes these prompts make perfect sense. Press a switch, search a chest, or build a fire. Occasionally though, these prompts take a sharp left turn and you end up pressing the X button on the controller, or E on your keyboard, to do some truly strange things. Things that just don't fit into what we've come to accept as normal video game activity. This list includes some of the oddest, funniest, and downright bizarre things that games have ever asked us to do with a button prompt. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 times video game button prompts got weird. Number 10. Push L3 plus R3 to gouge. God of War 3. The God of War games have never shied away from violence. Quite the opposite, in fact. They embrace it. This has seldom been more evident than in God of War 3, in the massive and admittedly time-consuming battle with Poseidon. The fight is violent, bloody, and brutal, even if it's more of a cutscene with QuickTime events than any real challenge of your fighting ability. Kratos throws Poseidon from one end of the mountain top to the other, leading to a pathetic scene where the sea god, knowing he's beaten, attempts to slither to safety over a cliff. Kratos, who's having none of that, drags Poseidon away from the cliff's edge, and you end up with the prompt to hit L3 and R3 at the same time. At which point, Kratos jams his thumbs into the god's eyes, making the screen go black. See, that's the other part. You're witnessing all of this from Poseidon's point of view, meaning you don't just see Kratos' thumbs jam into your eyes, you experience it. Horrible squelching noise and all. It's not that this is a bad or ridiculous prompt, it's just visceral. Number 9. Kiss your wife. Shadow of Mordor. So this one is a whole other kind of weird in that it makes you feel a little bit stalkerish and pervy. Shadow of Mordor is a third-person open-world adventure game set in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. As Talion, a ranger, you roam across the land seeking vengeance on Sauron for killing your family. During the course of the game, combat is a given, as is stealth. You can make kills from stealth as would be expected, as well as simply move around while crouched. Now this is what leads to the weirdness. While you're in stealth and close to your wife, you get a prompt to press the attack button to kiss her. Doing so leads to a cutscene where you do indeed smooch her and present her with flowers to celebrate your anniversary. Why do you have to kiss your wife from stealth mode? Why is the button to kiss her the same as the button you normally use to attack? Is the game implying you have to overcome your own wife with stealth and force to land a kiss on her? The whole thing is just a little bit creepy. Number 8. Twitch as a piece of meat. Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey is a platformer that lets you control Mario as he, for what seems like the 1000th time, sets off in search of Princess Peach to rescue her from the clutches of the evil Bowser. As an aside, you think that Princess Peach might have invested in some kind of personal security at this point instead of just relying on a plumber to come save her every time she gets inevitably kidnapped. Anyways, as Mario, you travel through the gorgeously rendered lands, all of which have different themes, with the ability to inhabit various entities. At one point, you end up in a food-themed world, up on the meat plateau. While you're up there, you get the opportunity to possess a slab of meat, and why wouldn't you want to do that? But once you do, you're given the button prompt to twitch. As a piece of meat, that's apparently the only way you can move, and you need to maneuver yourself to the giant bowl of soup so you can attract the giant bird boss. It makes more sense when you play, but it does bring to mind the gross possessed steak from Poltergeist. Number 7. Poop. South Park: The Stick of Truth. South Park, both show and games, revels in its absurdity and never shies away from body humor. As a show about 4 young boys living in a bizarre Midwestern American town, it was inevitable that potty humor would constantly rear itself, generally causing guilty giggles. The Stick of Truth was a love letter of a game, filled to the brim with callbacks, obscure Easter eggs, scatological humor, and endless replayability. It certainly didn't take itself too seriously. In that spirit, anytime your character is near a toilet, you get the opportunity to, well, poop. Using the prompt leads to a minigame that challenges you to keep tapping the button until you, finish. The game spares no effort to make this as ridiculous and gross as possible, sound effects included. Matt Stone and Trey Parker are goddamn geniuses, and this has only added to my WhatCulture tally of the number of times I've needed to say poop on camera. There's another one. Number 6. Jason. Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain is an extremely dark game, as far from popular genres like first-person shooters and beat-em-ups as you can get. In the game, you play one of 4 characters hunting down the Origami Killer, a murderer who takes advantage of torrential rains to drown his victims. The game was a massive success, both commercially and critically, but then there was the Jason bit. At one point in the game, you're searching for your lost son, Jason, in a crowded mall. And no, I can't stop saying it like that. As you walk through the busy corridors and shops, you frequently receive a floating button prompt that simply reads, "Jason!" Triggering the action will make your character Ethan yell out for his son. It makes sense on a certain level. Any parent who's ever lost a child, even temporarily, could tell you that you want to instinctually call out to them just in case they're within earshot so they know where you are. Unfortunately, Heavy Rain takes the concept so over the top that it becomes a parody of itself. Hearing Ethan call Jason with only a few different inflections so often quickly sucks the emotion from the act. Heavy Rain is full of button presses that further the story, but this one really would have taken advantage from the idea that less is more. Number 5. Do Magic. SmackDown vs. Raw 2009. The Undertaker's backstory is, well, convoluted. He's an ex-mortician / Lord of Darkness / patriotic badass biker. Depending on story needs, he's summoned lightning, made things burst into flame, and returned from the dead. In SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, we're presented with an Undertaker who can apparently do magic during a match. In the midst of matches, however, we're presented with a prompt to perform a magic attack. Hitting the button makes Undertaker put his hand up like he's an eager child who wants to answer a question in school, thereby freezing or stumbling whoever is under his control in the ring. It's bizarre because the rest of the game is pretty faithful to the shows. Set entrances, theme music, wrestler looks, all are well captured and look good. In the midst of that, you have Undertaker acting like a Mortal Kombat character. It's just a little jarring. Number 4. Make a stink pickle or kill germs. Deadpool. Much like South Park, Deadpool is another game that absolutely revels in its toilet humor. Both movies and comic books have no trouble with letting Deadpool engage in the most repulsive of bodily functions. The Deadpool game is no different. An underrated gem that's now extremely hard to find, the game puts you into Deadpool's red leather suit and mask, crossing paths with many other beloved Marvel characters as you play through an open world. While wandering through your home base, that is Deadpool's apartment, you can head to the bathroom that looks like it came exactly out of the Saw franchise. When you get close to the toilet, you get 2 options: make a stink pickle or kill germs. It's likely no surprise what most online footage shows. Assuming you chose to make a stink pickle, we're treated to the sight of Deadpool dropping his pants, expanding the black sensor block to cover his massive manhood, or so he leads us to believe, and proceeding to grunt and yell his way through what sounds like a violent bowel movement. Gross, but totally in character. Number 3. Pay respects. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Arkham City, and Spider-Man. The button press that launched 1,000 memes. The theory behind this button press is understandable. It's even noble, but it's also very, very weird. Basically, what you're doing is paying respects to someone who's passed. In Advanced Warfare, you pay tribute to a fallen comrade in arms, which is parodied to great effect in Battlefront Hardline. In 2018's Spider-Man, you visit the grave of Uncle Ben, who started you down the road to being a superhero with his great responsibility speech. And in Arkham City, you visit Crime Alley, the site of the greatest tragedy of Bruce's life, the night his parents were killed and he started down the path to being a vigilante of the night. In at least 2 of the games, it breaks up the story flow. In Advanced Warfare, you're basically replicating what another character does during the cutscene, which seems designed to create artificial pathos. In Spider-Man, your trip to see Uncle Ben is more of an Easter egg, including an achievement to go along with it. Only in Arkham City does the act really have any resonance, as it explores not only Batman's creation, but Bruce Wayne's reflections on himself as a crime fighter and about the death of the Joker. Number 2. Jump into a mass grave. Homefront. Homefront is a first-person shooter that's set in a version of the United States in 2027, where a reunited Korea has invaded and taken over the country. In a twist that eerily mirrors current events, part of the weakening of the US that led to the war involved a massive pandemic and the collapse of the financial system in 2022. During the game, you become a freedom fighter against the occupying Korean forces. As you play through the single-player missions, at one point you and your team need to immediately hide from approaching Koreans. Your only option, much to your character's shock, is to press a button to jump into a mass grave of fellow Americans, leading to a cutscene of you pulling dead bodies over yourself. It's a visceral moment, and the thought of actually having to do this for real is an absolutely appalling one. It's not, however, something you expect in an FPS game of the mid-thousands, when the emphasis was primarily on being as loud and bombastic as possible as you blasted through game worlds. Thankfully, this is not a mechanic that's caught on in many other video games, or any other video games. Number 1. Move body parts. Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed as a series has presented us with many odd moments, some intentional and some due to nightmarish and glitchy gameplay. But this selection from early in the series ranks right up there with the strangest. AC2 starts with your birth, not metaphorically, but literally. You watch the moment of your character's birth. It appears, however, that you aren't breathing and may be in distress. This absolutely adds some unique backstory to Ezio's life. Where the game starts to get weird and a bit creepy is when your father takes you in his arms, lovingly cradling you, and delivers a pep talk to get you moving and fighting for life. You start to get button prompts to move various parts of your body. Press to move your legs, press to move your empty hand, press to move your armed hand, which is even odder considering that you're a baby and barely capable of closing your fist, much less holding a weapon. But what the game is cleverly doing here is taking you through the control mechanics to prepare you for later gameplay. It's a unique way to conduct a tutorial, but putting a baby's life literally in your hands is a strange way to kick off a AAA title. And that is the end of our very entertaining list. Do let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other button prompts in gaming that had you scratching your head thinking, this is a little weird. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more great lists.